Is going to bring in 3 cases of a woman as she's being given the drink. She's standing in the mikvah, she's given the drink, and what is she going to say? And what's the procedure? Ad shelo nimchaka hamegillah, amra eini shotah, megillata nignezet, uminchata mitpazeret al hadeshen. Okay, so what's the case? They did not yet put the Megillah into the water, and she says, no, I don't want to drink. So what do? Her Megillah is put in Gnizah with other different writings of Kodesh and that are not used, and her Mincha is burnt on the Beit Hadeshen, as other Kodshim are, in the Mikdash. Ve'ein Megillah Shera lashkot basota acheret, and her Megillah cannot be used for anyone else. Okay. Nimchaka hamegillah ve'amra tmea ani hamayim nishbechim u'minchata mitpazeret al beit hadeshen. What happens in the case when they already erased the Megillah and she says that she's tmea? So in that case, we spill out the water because the water is there to see if she is tmea, and she already admitted to being tmea, so we don't need to go through this test. And her mincha is again burnt. Nimchaka hamegillah ve'amra eini shotah ma'arin ota u'mashkin ota ba'al korcha. So what happens? They already erased the Megillah. She says eini shotah, I don't want to drink. So we started discussing that yesterday. What does it mean when she says she doesn't want to drink? From this Mishnah yesterday we discussed perhaps it's an admission of guilt. And from this Mishnah, it seems it is not an admission of guilt, and therefore we force her to drink the water. Eina mispeket lishtot ad shepanea morikot ve'einea boltot vehi mitmalemet kidin vehem omrim hotziuha shelo t'tameh ha'azara. So what happens? She didn't even finish drinking the whole thing. As she's drinking, we see that the water is already taking its effect, and they say, oh, let's take her out of the Azara before it becomes Tameh. We're going to see specifically what that means in the Gemara. Now, again, we discussed yesterday, is this, according to the Chachamim and Rabbi Shimon, we had the two opinions. One is that when you give the mincha, is it before she drinks or is it after she drinks? And in this case, we see that the water is taking effect right away. So we have to bear that in mind as we're going to discuss it in the Gemara. Because if the water is taking effect right away, then it must be that the mincha was already given. Im yesh la zchut hayta tolala. Im yesh la zchut hayta tolala. Yesh zchut tola shana achat. Yesh zchut tola bet shanim. Yesh zchut tola gimel shanim. So if she has a zchut, then she would survive drinking the water. How long would she survive? So according to this Mishnah, depending on what her zchut is, either 1 year, 2 years, or 3 years. And we're going to discuss in the Gemara what the zchut is. Mikan Omer ben Azai, chayav adam lamed et bito Torah, she'im tishteh teda she'azchut tolala. So Ben Azai says that why should she learn Torah? Because then she will not, if the water doesn't work, she'll know the reason for the water not working. She won't say, oh, look, this is a ridiculous ceremony, and she won't ridicule the ceremony of Sotah, but she will know that it's because she has a zchut that the water didn't work. Rabbi Eliezer Omer, Kol hamelamed bito Torah, lamda tiflut. Rabbi Eliezer says, anyone who teaches his daughter Torah, it's like he teaches her tiflut, and Rashi here says that is znut. He explains tiflut is znut, and the Rambam explains, which we'll go to in a minute once we finish the Mishnah. The Rambam explains tiflut as havai. Okay, Rabbi Yeshua Omer, Rutze isha bekav b'tiflut mitish teisha kavim uprishut. He says a woman would rather have less money and have her tiflut, which in this case is explained as having her husband around, from having 9 kavim, which means she would be very wealthy and her husband's never around. Hu haya omer. Rabbi Yeshua had another statement. Chasid shoteh b'rasha arum v'isha prusha, v'makot prushin, hare elu mavle olam. So Rabbi Yoshua had a second statement, which he said, which will be explained in tomorrow's daf, that a chasid shoteh, so somebody who will not save a drowning woman, or rasha arum, someone who is mekel for himself but machmir for others, and isha pusha, someone who I can hear Mike's voice saying she does protest too much. Umakot pushin, someone who hits himself. They destroy the world because their tocho is not kibaro. They're not what they seem. So I just want to take a minute. I spoke to Shalom yesterday, and I looked at the Rambam, and the Rambam talks about women learning Torah, and he says that they should not that the schar of a woman. I'm going to read it here from the Steinsaltz because he summarizes it very much. Isha shlamda Torah yesh la schar, aval eino kischar ha'ish. Okay, so a woman who learns Torah gets schar, but not like a man, because she is not commanded to learn. Ba'af sheyesh la schar, tzivur chachamim shelo yilamed adam et bito Torah, mipnei sherov hanashim ein datan mechanat lomod, u'mitziut divrei Torah le'divrei havai. So he explains that they're going to then take the Torah as divrei havai. V'lefchein amru kol hamelabed bito Torah ki'ilu malamed tiflut. That's quoting our Mishnah. So the Rambam says that this is talking about Torah Sheba'al Peh. About Torah Shebichtav, shemitzaveh shel lo lamda ota eino melamed tiflut. But relating to Torah Shebichtav, it's not considered tiflut. The Katav b'Prisha. So the Prisha is a perush on the Rambam. Isha shlamda me'atzma. So the Prisha says that if a woman chooses to learn for herself, then she's not in this category. He goes on to explain how he sees women's learning there. And the interesting thing that I noted is that in the tour, some people say it's a printer's error and some people say it's not, but he reverses the Rambam statement. And he says if you teach your daughter, instead of saying that you could teach a Torah Shebechtav, he says it's Torah Sheba'al Peh. And there the Prisha says because it's more dangerous to make a mistake with Torah Shebechtav than Torah Sheba'al Peh. And Shalom gave me this article, which also points out that the Rambam has in his Sefer Yisodei HaTorah here, that he talks about the 5 commandments of Pardes. Oops, thanks. The 5 commandments of Pardes, which is to know Hashem and not to entertain thoughts of other gods, to know Hashem's unity, Hashem Achad, to love Hashem, Avat Hashem, and Yirat Hashem. And in Yisodei HaTorah, he says that everybody is commanded in these 5 mitzvot, and he includes that how do you get to achieve these 5 mitzvot? So in order to get to Pardes, which is to achieve these 5 mitzvot, you have to learn Divrei Abayi v'Rava. You have to learn basically Gemara. And he says, and who's commanded in this? And who is capable of learning this? He says, Gadol v'Katan, Ish v'Isha. So women are included in achieving Pardes and learning Torah. And I could send to everybody this article by Professor Warren from Beersheba University, I believe, who wrote a beautiful discussion of what the Rambam is saying in terms of women and Limud Torah. But I'm bringing this up now just as a point to say that this conversation that started in the Mishnah is a conversation that is continuing even today, and we, sitting here, are part of this conversation.